and welcome to the Glampitect PODcast. Today I'm joined by Morag Sallabanks, co-owner of Braeview Glamping. Morag and her husband are in the final stages of setting up their glamping site. It's been a long journey and one that they've learned a lot from. The purpose of today's episode is to extract the lessons they've learned and help anyone thinking of setting up their own site. Topics of discussion include the following: what caused her to take the leap and invest in a glamping site, the best and worst decisions she's made throughout the process, and the importance of careful planning before jumping straight into setup. It's an absolute must listen for anyone thinking of setting up a site or anyone currently in the process. There are loads of lessons to be taken from Morag's experience, and I hope you find it valuable.
Hi Morag, how you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. As usual with our guests, I'd like to get a bit of a backstory about how you got to where you are today. You are in the process of setting up your glamping site. So I'd like you to tell the audience exactly which point of the process you're at and how far off launching you are.
Yes, so we got our planning permission for our site on the 4th of June in 2020. So we had a series of quite stringent conditions we needed to meet, having got the actual planning permission. So that took quite a considerable time and help from other agencies to get all the information that the council wanted and to make sure that we met all those conditions before we could start doing any work. So we started work on the site sometime in October, actually physically getting the site ready to put the pods on and get all the utilities in. Unfortunately, we got a bit beaten by the weather just before Christmas, so we didn't manage to get all our utilities in. And it's pretty much rained ever since. So we're currently at the point where the pods are in place. We have the drainage in and the sewage treatment plant in, but we don't actually have electrics running because we can't get the diggers on site to get all the electricity supplies in. So we're just at a really awkward stage now where we really want to be putting the finer touches onto the site and getting things moving, but we just have to accept that we have to now wait for the weather.
Have you sort of got an end date in mind for when you want to launch?
Oh, it's so difficult. I mean, because we could get a really lovely dry March, and if the site was dry in March, we could get everything put in. And as I say, the pods are there and they're ready to go. But the harsh reality is that we might get a really wet March and April, and that's not going to help us either. So I think we're kind of done with setting targets for when we're going to be open, and we're just going to accept that we'll be open when we'll be open. All we can do is prepare as much of the stuff as we can and get as much done as we can, so that when we can get the digger back on the site, we're like ready to go as soon as that work's done. But it's just weather dependent. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. We're so close as well. We were so close to getting those trenches done before Christmas, but it just didn't happen. So
mind you, I suppose with the COVID restrictions, you'd be frustrated as it is if you were about to get up and running anyway.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that with the best will in the world, COVID has affected getting going right from the very start. We put our planning application in on the 15th of January. And then, of course, everyone at the council ended up working from home. So the small delays that we had that were maybe 3 or 4 or 5 weeks that didn't seem so important back then that has manifested itself into what is now like quite a huge delay at this end of the plan. But the reality is we can't do anything about it, and we just have to try and keep moving forward and doing the best we can with what we've got, really.
Yeah, sounds good. When did you actually first hear of glamping, and what made you think that it might be something that you'd like to try as a business investment?
Well, surprisingly, me and my husband turned it into caravanners, which kind of took us by surprise because that wasn't something that we ever envisaged ourselves doing. We actually spent our honeymoon camping, and we went to Silverstone MotoGP in a motorhome, and we just kind of liked that being away kind of thing. I was kind of done with being in a tent, though. I'm kind of decided I was past camping. So we got a caravan, and we loved just like getting away for the weekend, and it was quite good for exploring. We were living in England at the time, so exploring bits of England that I had never been to and seeing different sites. And there was certain caravan sites that we enjoyed and other ones that we didn't. And we found this one, it was only 45 minutes away from our house, but because we were restricted by finishing work on a Friday afternoon, and a lot of sites want you on by 8 o'clock, you get a bit restricted to where you can get to on a Friday night. And we found this site that we absolutely loved, and we kind of stopped exploring and just started going there to get away at the weekend. And it was great. It was just relaxing and quiet. It was actually an adults only site, so we don't have kids, so that was nice for us because it was always quiet. And we were like, I really like this. Is this something we could think about doing? And also we used to go away at New Year, just the two of us, and we get a cabin or a holiday cottage, and at New Year we'd literally just switch off our phones and spend 4 or 5 days either walking if there was somewhere to walk, or if the weather was rubbish, we'd just binge on a box set or download a movie or whatever. And it was just that kind of escapism and just doing your own thing. So we kind of had this site that we really loved. We were like, we could maybe we could do something like that. And I think you realize that we both had jobs where I was commuting down the M6 every day, and it just wasn't really where I wanted to be. So yeah, we started having all these crazy ideas about whether could we do it, could we set ourselves up, could it be a possibility. So that's kind of where it came from. And I suppose it starts with the conversations over a bottle of wine of, do you think we could do this? And then eventually at some point you go, we should maybe try. We should maybe give it a go. So yeah, it manifested itself over a long time. Yeah.
Was there a particular point or a particular bottle of wine where you decided, right, let's just go with it?
No, I think we're at this site. So this site that we liked, they had caravan pitches, but they also had put on some glamping pods. And so we went with my in-laws for a weekend. We went in the caravan and they took a glamping pod. And they loved it as well. They loved being away on this site as well. So I suppose that was kind of a tipping point. But our actual decision, it's difficult to say when it was made, but we didn't really make a decision until we decided to make a planning application. And we did that we spoke to an architect, and we also spoke to the Glampitect, and we had them both come out and look at the site, because it's all very well having these ideas, but you need someone in the know to tell you whether it could actually be a reality or not. So once we'd done that, and the architect and the Glampitect said, there was no reason why we shouldn't get planning permission, then that started to become a more serious conversation. But you've also got to make sure it's viable. You've got to, during that process, work out that if, putting all the groundwork in and paying for your planning application and all those kind of things, you've got to make sure because fundamentally it's your job and it's an income, so it's got to pay its way. So you have to go through all that process as well. So yeah, the decision was probably made after or through the planning process. Once we realised we were probably going to get planning, that was like a definite, oh yeah, we're definitely doing this now.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the importance of really taking a lot of consideration and taking your time and making sure you get everything absolutely right before you start, because that's one thing we highly recommend to any of our clients or prospective clients, that it is a business decision at the end of the day, and you can't just sort of you can't half-arse it, really, to put it bluntly. You've got to really step back and look at all the costs, and we do feasibility studies and stuff like that, which can help with that sort of thing. But just you got to treat it as a business investment as well as a passion. It sounds like you did that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a huge investment for us. It meant moving home for us. It's so we've sold a house and we now live in a studio flat for the moment, hopefully. So it's been it is a big investment and a big upheaval, but life's about taking some kind of risk and doing. Also, life's too short. You've got to do what you think is right for you. And we also wanted to make sure that when we chose our site and the kind of philosophy of our site, that it was respectful to our neighbours, who, I mean, when I say neighbours, they're not like right next door because we're on a farm. So they're, but they're close enough, and it changes things for them. It changes that they're neighbours to a farm to now neighbours to a glamp site. So you've got to be respectful to them, respectful to other people in your community, respectful to other business owners who are maybe in the same business. But I feel like we're quite niche, so we've gone down the niche kind of market, because I feel like although that kind of closes off a lot of the market, I think for us being specific is quite important for us to have a specific kind of clientele. So we're exclusively for adults, and we're also no dogs, because again, going back to being respectful to our neighbours are farmers and they have livestock, and with the best will in the world, you don't have 100% control over your guests, pets.
Yeah.
So that's kind of driven that thought of being respectful to our neighbours and our community, that the adults only and the no dogs has been driven by that, really. And maybe it's something we change in the future, but that's kind of how we intend to run the business at the moment. I think it's important to be flexible as well, but that's where we're starting.
Well, you said a lot there that I really want to, so many things that I want to get into. So I'll start with, well, it's an interesting point actually about neighbours' reactions to glamping plans, because that's quite a common thing we see with planning permission objections.
Yeah.
Some of the neighbours can be a bit tricky. Did you incorporate that attitude of being respectful to your neighbours? Did you incorporate that into your application, or did you do it after? Or?
Yeah, well, there was conversations with the neighbours beforehand. So, and we haven't had really any issues. We did have one objection that was in writing, but you can't please everybody all the time, and I do feel we are doing our best to not make it uncomfortable for any neighbours. And so it is really awkward, and especially if you do have people who, I can imagine that's really difficult if you've got people objecting to your plans. I think farming wise, for people who are doing it on a farm, with Brexit and all these things, there's no doubt that agriculture and farming is changing, and people need to diversify. And one thing that farmers have is the land and access to the countryside. And it's really controversial, because I'm a walker and I like to go to the countryside and I like to walk at the weekend, but I'm also a farmer's daughter, so I never walk in fields where there's cows and calves, or I'm quite uncomfortable about walking across people's land. I would never walk across the middle of a field. I'd always walk around the edge. But fundamentally, people do in Scotland have the right to roam. So I feel like if you give people permission and access to the countryside, but kind of point them in the right direction, then surely there's a compromise, to that kind of thing. So it is difficult, because maybe we will encourage people to walk along the public right of ways that haven't really been used as much recently. But I don't know, we've all just got to try and do what's best for everyone and be as nice to everybody as we can, and hope that, we can all get on.
Mm-hmm. So have you found the planning process as a whole? Because it sounds like you've come out of the objection stage of neighbours and stuff relatively unscathed. How do you find the actual planners themselves and the council?
Oh,
this could be interesting by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's so difficult. I think, so I've worked in the private sector and the public sector, and it's so hard because they aren't comparable. They're different animals, and it doesn't matter how you go. Well, the council should be, they should act quicker, and they should do this better and they should be more consistent and more reliable. That's what you expect in a business, and fundamentally the council isn't a business, and it doesn't work the same way as a business, so it's frustrating. I feel like it's a bit of a broken system. It doesn't feel consistent. It sometimes doesn't feel fair, but we have come out of it not too bad. Mm-hmm. I know that there are people who struggle for years and years and years to get planning, and we haven't had that. But I do find it a frustrating system, because I also know people who have set up bigger sites than us who didn't have to meet as many conditions as us. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's why I would always recommend finding someone. I would never go through planning without a professional to help me do it, because it is an absolute minefield, and you just need people to guide you through it and help you. Unless you're applying for a really simple site and you have experience of dealing with a council, I would just get someone else to do it. It's too much of a minefield. It's too frustrating. You get too emotionally involved as much as you try your best really not to. So obviously we had the Glampitect, and it was great because we just didn't need to worry about anything. Everything was dealt with in a super timely manner. Everything was dealt with really professionally. I mean, there was stuff going on in the background between the Glampitect and our planners that they were sorting out behind the scenes that, like, I didn't even know about, because I didn't need to know, because that's what we paid him. That's what we paid Callum to do. So yeah, so it was great. I don't love the system, and I would endeavour never to use it again if I possibly could.
Well, so your comments on the inconsistency of the system are really relevant, because we've got a team of planning experts basically, and there are certain councils that are effectively no-go zones. They just are so strict, whereas others are a little bit more lenient, and you've got a better chance of having a successful application. I was actually at the it was called the Eco Hotel Investment Summit the other day. Mm-hmm. It was like a remote summit about sustainable investment, and it was quite heavily glamping related. And there was an expert speaker there from Greece who basically said that in Greece they have a completely standardized system where it's government led, and you have to everyone in that country has to meet certain requirements for all sorts, really, planning to be considered an actual glamping site. And it's a lot more standardized. So that sounds like something that they could maybe do with implementing over here, even though obviously there are pros and cons to every approach, but it is completely inconsistent over here, and depends a lot on, because planners are humans as well. So you get some nice ones, some not so nice ones.
Yeah, it just feels like a really inefficient, outdated system, and the inconsistency must be super frustrating for guys like yourself who are dealing across local authorities. But I know we had a few conditions that we had to employ other people to meet for us, and lots of people said, but you're in the only local authority that will ever ask for this. Other local authorities don't ask for this, and they worked across the whole of Scotland. So yeah, it is frustrating, and fundamentally these things cost you money. Every time you have to go and get another report or another expert or another design consultant, it's never less than 100 quid an hour, is it? So it's just like you just hemorrhage money every time the council asks for another condition. So, and we have quite a tricky site in that we have like a little burn running through our site, and we're putting a bridge over the burn, and honestly, you just could never imagine the paperwork. I mean, so much paperwork that we've actually had to compromise with the council to not put that footbridge in for the moment, and just try and get the site up and running with 4 pods, even though we have permission for 8, because the building of a footbridge, just ridiculous amounts of paperwork and reporting, and yet other local authorities wouldn't have asked for it, so it is frustrating.
So I'm going to go to talking about your actual site now, the sort of exciting part rather than planning. So it sounds like a lot of the inspiration from your site came from this favorite caravan / glamping site that you stayed at frequently.
Yeah.
So how exactly has that sort of inspired it?
So because we're on the southeast coast of Scotland, we were, to be fair, relatively limited about what kind of glamping accommodation we could have. It is really windy here. So our site's quite nice because it is slightly in a valley, but there's no danger that we were having yurts or bell tents or anything that wasn't like really solid and tied down a lot. So pods were kind of the best solution for us. And also, as a business, we wanted to be able to operate 365 days of the year, or at least 11 months of the year, to make it a more viable business. It's very difficult to make all this investment pay if you can only operate for 6 or 8 months of the year. So that's kind of where the pods came into their own, because they have underfloor heating and they're en suite, so people don't need to go outside at night to go and use a shower block or a toilet block or whatever. That was really important to us, because it's a pretty miserable January day here today, and I'm not even sure I'd want to go and use a shower block during the day, never mind at night.
Yeah.
So
and you're sort of straying into camping territory there as well, aren't you?
Yeah. So that site was kind of an inspiration for us, but the actual glamping structures, pods kind of chose themselves because they had all the advantages that we wanted to be able to offer people for an all year round kind of experience, really. So even if you come in the summer, you might hardly spend any time in your pod because you might be out and about locally. But if you come in January or February and the weather's rubbish, then you've got super fast broadband and underfloor heating. You can just have a weekend watching Netflix if that's what you what you so desire. That's fine. So
it sounds like you're taking a it wasn't a decision you made on a whim. You had to move house, and it's a big risk really to set up your site. So what are your feelings towards that? Is it excitement? Is it fear? Is it a bit of both?
I think I'm past the fear.
Yeah.
Now that the pods are here, I mean, frustrating as it is that they're not actually wired up, now that the pods are here and the site is starting to look kind of how we want it to look. I know we're going to dig it all up again to put the electric cable in, but I'm excited now, and I'm just frustrated now because I want to be able to get all the nice images started for the website and the social media, and we kind of can't do that yet because we're not quite there yet. So kind of champing at the bit now. But I mean, there was like when we were trying to meet all the conditions, so we had our planning permission, but we hadn't met the conditions, so we couldn't start work. I mean, that was
scary
days. That was like, God, are we actually going to make it? This is really, it was really tough, actually. It was really hard. And me and my husband, we were both working full time as well as, and try to do all this. We were 200 miles away, so we were trying to do it from a distance as well. So yeah, it was really tough, but you don't set out on one of these sort of processes and not think it's going to be a roller coaster. It's always going to be a roller coaster, because as soon as we heard we got planning permission, we're like, yes, we've got planning permission. And then we saw the list of conditions and we were just like, so we went from like super high to super low, in the space of a day. But we're excited now, and we just need to get there now. We just need the final push.
Well, yeah, as we said earlier, it's a business at the end of the day. There's no business in history that is a walk in the park to set up. You're going to have stressful times. It's going to be scary and hard. But, as Callum said in the first episode, when you get that first booking, it will be an amazing feeling, especially considering all you've gone through to get there.
Yeah, definitely. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to finally to get to that. And actually, we've done it because we want to provide high quality accommodation and give people weekends that they love coming for. We would love to have people who maybe came from Edinburgh or from Newcastle and who maybe came 3 or 4 weekends out the year because they know that they can be here in an hour, and they get here and they just know where they're going. And you know, that would be great. And actually that's really rewarding to be able to give people that break at the weekend, if that, you know, and see happy faces leaving on a Sunday or whenever, saying, oh yeah, we've had a great weekend and we'll be back. So that's all you want, really.
So yeah, if you're looking for, you know, loyal guests who keep coming back and back, I imagine customer service is a big side of your plans. Are you planning to sort of live near the site and meet your guests as they come, or are you going to outsource that to hire someone to sort all that sort of thing up?
Yeah, no, I am. So I'm not working now. So because this is my job now. So we're gonna live really close to site. A lot of people like to be met when they get somewhere on a Friday night or whatever, but I also realise there's a lot of people who don't want to be met and they just want to get their key out the key safe and probably not see anyone all weekend and just do their own things. So I think there's a fine, you know, it's nice to be around, and we've got a buffet, which is it's not really a reception because you don't need to check in at a reception, but you know, there'll be somebody there, and so that people can come and ask questions or seek advice on where to walk, or you know, where to go and get their chippy tea or whatever they want to know. So it's nice to kind of be available, but actually not be in people's faces, I think. So yeah, I think that's kind of the plan, to be about, but not to be too overly keen.
Sounds like a good balance. So earlier you mentioned that you're not able to get really nice picture of your site just yet whilst you're waiting for the electrics to be sorted out, but